Hey everyone, this is Manti here. I am the host and founder of Level Up Broadcast. And in this episode, I'm happy to bring my friend Deepak Singh. Me and Deepak speak a lot of topics around product led growth, from the skill set, mindset that a growth PM needs to have. We talk about some success stories of product led growth products built out of India. So stay tuned in and watch for this episode. Hi everyone, hope you all are doing good. Welcome to yet another episode of Level Up Broadcast. And I'm your host, Malti. I'm a product executive and a product leadership coach. In this episode, I'm excited to host my friend Deepak Singh, who is the founder of pmcurve.com, where he basically teaches a lot of elements of product management and is also the author of the book Tech Simplified. I would say it's like the holy grail for non tech aspiring PMs. It is always the recommended book. I give it to my students when they are from non tech background and they won't want to learn more about technology. Yeah. So, welcome to this episode, Deepak. Happy to have you here today.
Thank you, Maldi. Thanks a lot. And thanks for sort of helping the young PMs sort of becoming better in their careers, right? And I see like you have been doing it through various initiatives over the past couple of years since we got connected. So very happy to see the progress and very happy to see this podcast and be on this podcast, right? So thank you for hosting me. Uh,
Thank you. My pleasure, and definitely, happy to have you in my first few episodes. And I definitely have to say this about Deepak, right? I mean, Deepak has led a lot of product growth leadership positions, which he will talk a little while. But if Deepak is on this episode, the theme has to be product led growth, or as he calls it, as value led growth. Yeah, so stay tuned, and we will speak a lot many more about this today. So Deepak, let's start with a little introduction about you. Just walk us through that. I'm sure audience would be very enthralled to see how your career has evolved as a product manager.
Yeah, sure. So I think I'll start with where I'm right now and what led to that, right? It's always good to sort
Sure,
of have a backstory of what I'm doing. So I'm currently
sure.
founder of pmcurve.com. And, through pmcurve.com, I think the goal that I picked up is how do we help PMs create impact in their roles? Now, the goal, like the path that I've chosen right now is through courses, but like we keep saying in product, work from the problem backwards. And I'll keep coming back to this point in particular because it's one of my favorite tenets. So yeah, impact, I think I have built like a course on product growth. I have built a course on product sense and strategy. And all of this is for experienced PM. This is not for cracking the PM interview, right? And my sense is like it will help PMs create impact in their roles. And if it doesn't, I will further figure out what actually helps PMs create impact in their roles, right? So I think the goal is pretty clear with this one. It's also interesting how I arrived on this goal, right? So I think product management has been like in nascent stage in India for last like uh, 10 or 15 years. Like that's when it started. And we have veterans like you who have sort of led the industry for a longer period of time. But for most people, it started when Flipkart started hiring APMs back in 2012, 2013. And after that, like it has led to
Correct.
a lot of growth in this sector and all that, right? So I started my job in consulting. I moved to like data product roles in housing.com. That was a poster child of startups back in 2015, 16, if people remember. And then like after, what I realized in data products is, of course, like you get to build good products, and I was good at data, but you still like are far away from impact because what you're supplying is insights, right? And that led to like my first product role at UpGrad, and I was also the first PM to get hired there, apart from the founder. And that gave me a lot of
Okay.
exposure. So I learned like a lot of things in next 2 to 3 years. The founders were very supportive, and I became director of product in like 3 years at UpGrad, right? So that just shows their faith and their
Wow.
sort of eagerness to sort of help young talent. So I learned a lot of things, like primarily around product growth, but also around like data products, data science, sales, marketing, and all that. It was a very, very sort of cross-functional role that I led. I also built my team, like first team of product managers there. And then after that, it has just been product leadership roles in Unacademy, then Flipkart, first Flipkart actually, then Unacademy, and now at PM Curve, right? I'm a founder. And all of that, like across all these, like product growth has been consistent because I have mostly worked at startups. And the key thing about startups is if you don't grow, you die, right? So growth has been at the forefront of every role that I have taken. Even at Flipkart, I primarily worked on 0 to 1 products like games and gamification, conversational AI, like which is like shopping assistant and voice search, right? So that like you said, like it has been a recurring theme in my career. And yeah, that's why I started with growth program and then now product sense and strategy at PM Curve. And yeah, I'm looking forward to like what comes next.
Awesome. I mean, yeah, as you said, as I could, go through the chronology as you were talking about, growth is like literally the team, and not only your career, but people around you, but you have seen the organizations also kind of grow along with you, right? So that's
Yeah.
amazing. Now, since we are on, sorry. Okay, now since we are on that topic, so Deepak, as you call it, as more generically in the industry, it is called as product-led growth, and I know that you kind of specifically call it as value-led growth, right? So why don't you help us just deconstruct that a little bit? And especially, I would like you to spotlight a little bit of what does that mean from a B2C standpoint versus a B2B product standpoints, right? So I think that would be a great start of questions.
Yeah. No, that's a great question. So let me unwrap it by going back to like how traditional product function worked, right? So in traditional
Hmm.
product functions, if I was building a smart fridge or a fridge in general in like historically in 1970s or 80s, I had like three functions. The first was acquisition, which was like the marketing, brand marketing, and like newspaper marketing and all that, where you educated customers about the product. And then there was a product development team within, like which was R&D and product and all that, which used to build the value, which is the fridge, right? Fridge, its features, how does it work, and all that. And then came monetization, which is the business, which used to crack partnerships with dealers and all that. So if you look historically, like these three functions have been, this is how growth has happened. Like there's somebody who is creating value, there's somebody who is acquiring customers, and then there is somebody who is trying to put the right price point and partnerships and all to sort of monetize and bring in revenue. uh, I think technology changed few things. I think the first thing that tech changed was it actually blended these functions more than we had anticipated. For example, and I love giving examples because they help me solidify the point rather than giving generic gyan. So if you
Sure.
think of marketing, right, your recommendation, the best sort of marketing happens when your recommendation engine, which understands the user better, also talks to your remarketing engine. So if I'm
Hmm.
running an e-commerce website and somebody has bought a book, I think earlier we had the frustration, I have bought this book, why are you showing me this book again when I'm going to YouTube, right? But as marketing evolved, like people realized that you can actually feed the recommendation algorithm into your remarketing, and you can actually recommend people something which is similar. Like if somebody bought a book, why don't you show them Kindle ads? Why don't you show them some other book that they might like in non-fiction or fiction, right? So usually like acquisition is now talking to product a lot, and wherever acquisition is talking to product a lot, the acquisition has gotten better because acquisition is a function of what is the messaging you're sharing and who are you targeting. Now if we understand users best, as we like to call it as PMs, or as we build products around them, isn't product also the best way to actually message and target and all, doing all those things, right? So acquisition blended with uh, product pretty well. And then you also saw a lot of growth coming from product itself, right? So the biggest advantage that internet brought was network effects, and business is built on network effects. Now network effect happens on internet primarily because internet is a network of networks, which is network of computers and all that. But a lot of strongest businesses like Google, Facebook, Amazon. All of these were built on these network effects, which became the primary driver of their acquisition, right? So, which is why, like, it's very, very important to understand when we talk about growth in tech products, it's not like three different functions. It's actually acquisition is blending with value creation. And then value creation is also blending with monetization, because monetization right now does not happen by just selling the fridge. It's actually, it could be a subscription model, it could be
Right.
ads with, right, it could be something else, like cross selling some other product. You are selling something very cheaply to sell something else at a more premium price, right? Something which is like razor and blade model. And monetization has evolved a lot. And one of the key things, key parameters to measure whether your monetization is great or not is lifetime value, LTV as we call it, right? Now, LTV, if I had to ask some PM, young PM, what is the LTV strongest function of? And if the thing's slightly harder, they will come with the answer that it is the strongest function of retention. Because
Right.
if you can retain customers, you can eventually monetize something or other, like tomorrow, day after tomorrow, and all that, right? Now, retention is the leading indicator of lagging indicator of value that you deliver, right? So ultimately, if you look at the acquisition and sort of monetization, the CAC and LTV, they have also, they are at the core function of the value that we are creating. And which is why, like, there is
Right.
a lot of confusion when people talk about product led growth, because it is marketing folks and business folks. Because marketing folks are responsible for growth, by the way, business folks are responsible for growth. So when you call it product led growth, people are like, is product leading this growth, or are we also sort of doing our bit? And that's a big challenge, right? And which is why I like to say that if we call it value led growth, PMs will be focused on creating more and more value, and maybe imparting that value into sort of retention, into sort of acquisition, messaging, targeting, and all that. And that will be better for everyone, including marketing and business folks who are now feeling shortchanged because everybody is talking about product led growth, right? So
Right.
I would say that the sentiment is right, but like a lot of things, it gets interpreted in a different way, both by PMs and others. So why not call it value-led growth? And that's the thesis behind, like, calling it value-led growth, and that's a deconstruction of the entire growth thing, right? Now you raised a very good question, which is like a B2B versus B2C angle to growth. And that is where you'll realize, I think B2B growth varies a little bit in the sense that if you look at B2B, especially in small and medium business segments, it's getting closer to B2C growth tactics, in the sense that you are going via free trials, you are going via freemiums, and like people are building more and more ways to get customers to taste something, right, and then pay for it, which is basically in consume, and the reason is very, very clear. The reason is because your CAC will increase manifold if you employ an inside sales team for selling a subscription of Calendly, which is a B2B or B2C product, or even like a subscription of $100 per month, right? Because the cost is very high. So then people realize that if you want to sell to SMBs at scale, let's say million SMBs or something like that, you need to go after scalable strategies of acquisition, which is like free trial or freemium, right? And that I would say is the fundamental shift that has happened over time, which is like you realize that you can actually get growth done via this, you can get acquisition done via this. The second shift that has happened with Notion and Figma sort of case studies is they have realized that when you are going to organizations, you don't need to go via organizations. You can go via community and you can go via consumer. So the Notion is not targeting enterprises. It does not have an enterprise sales team which goes into like these startups and sells it. They are targeting us, people like us, PMs and developers and all, who are creating documents, sharing with somebody else. So they are leveraging the power of network effects and the power of community. Add to that, they're also building a stronger community to build user generated content. For example, Figma sort of asks user to share templates that they create. The power of the templates, it helps them surface on Google search when somebody searches for a template, or Miro, for example. Miro also leveraged this old templates, UGC sort of thing. So what you see is a lot of B2B and B2C growth is actually merging, right? barring enterprise growth, which still needs like sales team to go and build relations and all that. But even there, like the faster it becomes, the easier it becomes to switch because you have built integrations into
Right.
your product. The easier it becomes to
Right.
experience or learn, the more growth will come from there, right? Which is why AWS does it really, really well, like even with enterprise segment, at least in the initial years, because it was so easy to switch from on-premise to sort of, yeah. So yeah, that's like a longer monologue than I expected, but yeah, I just wanted to make it very clear what we are calling growth, what is product-led growth, what is value-led growth, and finally why tech changes a lot of things around it, and then why B2B and B2C growth are more sort of converging rather than diverging. uh, yeah, so those are like few pointers.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, it's, I would also say that it is kind of democratizing the choice, with the consumer. Because as you were saying in the B2B space earlier, it would usually be a top-down decision making, right? So now, first of all,
Yeah.
you're able to democratize the choice that the end consumer who is going to be using the product is able to
Yes.
make that decision. That is number one. And as the first point that you were making, the end user will eventually make that decision when they see value in it, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
with that value, so it is already that they are seeing value, and that is why they are able to bring in that information to sensitize others, and then it kind of goes into the virality of network effects where they can see faster adoption. And I would say,
Yeah.
I think, I mean, a lot of references we usually have from the West. I think Dropbox and Asana were one of the early products which were kind of
Yeah.
setting this value-led growth or product-led growth in motion,
Yes. Yes.
right?
Definitely. I think
So
Dropbox is like I would say overquoted in some sense, but in the same way,
it
like
does.
it captures the essence, which is like referrals were probably the first time somebody realized
Yes,
that you can ask people to use a product more and gain more
right.
customers.
Yes,
So yeah,
exactly. You
it
get
is.
so much
Thank you for.
space free. So yeah, that
Yeah.
was one thing. And yeah, that's right. And Deepak, one of the other things which you brought in, right? Like right now, when you are selling these, I mean, technology has been a game changer. Internet has suddenly made a lot of things very accessible, right? So that has also made that the whole PM function, which is a very still a very evolving function in our country, bringing businesses much more closer, bringing your teams like marketing and data much
Yeah.
more closer, right? So now,
Yeah.
earlier, what was probably only the responsibility of a business team is they have many more shoulders to kind of leading the growth charter with them. Now,
Yeah.
in this kind of a situation, it is very important that organizations are setting up the right kind of organizational structure so that any kind of barriers to execution or decision making are minimized. Right? That is very
Yeah.
important to the kind
Yeah.
of growth and the scale that they're looking to achieve. Now, I would really like to pivot the next question in that direction, that how can a growth PM thrive? And what should an organization do in order to support it, sustain it, and I would say help everybody grow together along with the organization, the PMs, and all the teams?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because honestly, I've struggled with this question. For most of my career, because I have seen like growth teams forming in different ways, various ways, and more often than not, you don't have enough data point to say that this is the right way to set this up or this is the wrong way to set this up, because, like we said, like
Correct.
it's still an evolving function. Uh,
Right.
Before we talk about like how can a growth PM sort of, how should a growth PM think, like what makes a growth PM a good growth PM, and then these growth PMs, if somebody wants to become a growth PM, what sort of structure do they look up to sort of support them, and then we can come to like how can organizations build this structure, right?
Sure,
We
sure.
can structure it like that also in my head. So before that, like I just want to put one sort of nuance, one trend that we are seeing recently, which is I think
Uh-huh.
Brian Chesky made that change of moving PMs to PMMs, right? And ultimately,
Yes.
if you look at the message that he delivered, it's not that we are changing a PM function. It's just that he is saying that maybe PMs need to deliver impact in terms of growth when it comes to managing any product and every product. Because when it comes
Mm-hmm.
to shipping products, strong developers and EMs and designers are self sufficient. It's not that they don't understand the nuances of how to test it, how to ship it, and all that. But PMs need to be more customer oriented than shipping date oriented, right?
Hmm.
And that's the key message that Brian Chesky sort of sent out to the world. And I actually love like the way he thinks, because the reason we have not talked about this enough is because the most celebrated organizations, for example Facebook or Google, never faced the customer acquisition crunch, right?
Correct.
And even when it comes to monetization, they have a very very strong cash flow in their
Correct.
organization. Amazon is a different story. Amazon actually does not differentiate much between like PM leaders and and business leaders. It says that you are GM, general manager, like do product, do whatever it takes to grow the business. So they have somehow set
Yes.
up that culture. But because two of the leading companies in our generation didn't have that pain, I think it's somewhere like percolated that it's fine to ship great products and good products, and the acquisition will be taken care of. But
Hmm.
most of the startups have realized and started feeling that pain over time. And that is why like Airbnb is making that shift. But if you go and you talk to like 5, 6, 10 different startups, they will tell you that they need growth PMs more than they need PMs who can ship things faster, or do a good job at shipping quality software, right?
Correct. Correct. Correct.
So that
Correct.
that has become a given. Like you will ship quality software, that is a given. Now the up leveling needs to happen in terms of growing the products, right? And that brings me, the
Correct.
the reason I wanted to bring this point is so that like the audience sitting there out there does not feel that, oh, it's not relevant for me because I'm not a growth PM. You have to be a growth PM. You have to graduate to be a growth PM, because
Correct.
ultimately, why are you shipping software? If you ask that question, the reason is because you want to grow, right?
Correct. Exactly.
So that's the first point. The second point is, the interesting question you asked is like, if there is a growth PM, like how do they get better at delivering at their jobs? Like what differentiates a great growth PM from a good growth PM? And
Mm-hmm.
the answer to that question is actually like the only difference I have seen is in two regards. One is like uh, great growth PMs are actually very fascinated with the impact they create. So they talk a lot more about customer and impact as compared to what all we shipped. And we have launched this,
Mm-hmm.
this, and this. Like, actually, that does not, that definitely appeals to them, but that is not the end game. The end game is always impact. So, great growth PMs, if you want to become better at growth, or if you want to become a great growth PM, you have to start with the impact and then work backwards on the skills that is needed for that impact, or the knowledge that is needed for the impact, or anything else, right?
Right.
So that's the framework that I usually advocate. Like, what does it take to reduce customer acquisition costs by 50%, or improve my
Mm-hmm.
retention by 30%, or improve my
Mm-hmm.
monetization by 50%?
Mm-hmm.
That's where you need to start, and then keep working backwards to sort of features and all that. And this back and forth creates a very good sort of feedback loop on whether what you're doing actually creates growth for the org or it does not, right? So that's
Right.
how you need to operate, right? That's the mindset. So that's the first secret ingredient. The second is actually the will. So the first is more around skill. The second is will, right? And the when I say will, it's basically the will to do the unpopular thing or the right thing. The will to pick
Uh-huh.
fights, show teeth. In fact, I like to say, have the courage to in fact challenge the CEO on certain things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think over time it has become clear. For example, Microsoft made this fundamental change in their culture, which people
Mm-hmm.
talk a lot about. Made that change of sort of making it more impact oriented and all that. But culturally, I definitely believe that great CEOs also create that culture of people challenging each other and challenging the leadership on a lot of things, because honestly the people closest to the problems, people closest to the customers, are actually the mid to sort of,
Correct.
PMs, SPMs, GPMs, directors. So why should
Correct.
they not have the strongest say in what gets built and what doesn't, right? So while top down strategy has a merit, the strongest growth teams actually operate bottoms up, because they understand the problems
Yes.
like nobody else does in the organization, right? So that's the second thing. And
Correct.
I'm not saying that you should go bottoms up, it should be both, by the way, balance of both. But that's the second thing, which is the will of a PM is very, very important. And when you
Mm-hmm.
combine the will with the skill of working backwards and creating impact, like that creates magic, right? Now that brings me to your, possibly the question I've struggled with most, which is, what sort of organization do growth PMs thrive in? What sort of organization should you create for growth PMs to give
Correct.
a chance of success, right? And this is
Hmm.
where a lot of injustice has happened with growth PMs. I don't have a better word for it, so I'll pick injustice. And the reason
Uh-huh.
I'm saying it is, I'll give you an example. So suppose there is
Mm-hmm.
a OTT platform like Hotstar, right? Now Hotstar has different teams for different things. It has
Mm-hmm.
a recommendation team which looks after homepage recommendations when you land. It has a onboarding team which looks at login and OTP and all those stuff. It has a video tech team which looks at like buffering and all those video technicalities. It then has, I'm just thinking what else team it could have, a support function and all, which looks after the support tickets and all, but usually that's
Correct.
not a large enough team, so I'm leaving that. It has a search team, which, because people inevitably like search or go through recommendation, so it has search,
Yeah.
recommendations, and video tech. And then there is a onboarding team, and then it tries to build a growth team, and the goal for growth team is to move retention by 50% by next year.
Hmm.
The problem is the levers have already been distributed across all product functions. The
Correct.
levers to move retention, which is one of the hardest problems of product management and a company, which is possibly the best indicator of product market fit, which is a primary goal for a CEO, by the way, right? So retention is the hardest problem for the CEO, for the company, for the PMs teams, is being picked by a team which does not have enough levers to move, because when it goes and tries to critic search product lead takes, they're like, why are you coming and critiquing search? When it goes and says that our recommendation is not great, then recommendation PM is of course like not feeling great. And that's basic human nature, nothing to be offended or sort of judging around.
Correct.
But organizations need to be very, very careful of not just giving the growth PMs, the login screen and notifications. Because honestly, login, if I'm talking about value led growth, value does not come through notifications. Notification is
Correct.
just a
Correct.
way of reminding people. Value does not come
Correct.
from like onboarding and login. uh, of course the first experience comes from onboarding and login, but I will even debate that even to deliver a little bit of value, you need some control over search and recommendations, right? And
Correct.
that is the injustice that has happened with growth PMs, which is like, they haven't gotten enough levers to move the hardest metric that they're supposed to manage. And if you're looking for examples of companies which have done it very, very well, like Facebook is a prime example. And like people who are listening to this, I would ask them to go and see this talk by Chamat Palihapitiya, who was head of international growth at Facebook in its early days. He
Right.
built, his team built, like people you may know, his team built a lot of like notifications. And uh, his team built the notification for Candy Crush, by the way. So
Hmm.
people
Oh,
would,
okay. I
I'm
didn't
not
know
saying
that.
it's all rosy, but yeah, I'm just joking. But the point is, Chamat's team or Facebook in general, like, and I'm a big fan of like Mark Zuckerberg. Uh, so they actually gave a lot of power to growth team. Growth team could run experiments anywhere, any part of the app. They could sort
Hmm.
of control the whole notification, whole onboarding. They could build features like people you may know and all that. And of course, there were like some repercussions to that in the future, that media has talked a lot about. But you can't take the credit of building a solid growth team for possibly the first social media network that cracked 1 billion users across the globe,
Correct.
right? It was
Correct.
not the first, it did not have the first mover advantage, it was not even the first like 3 social media platforms, but it still
Correct.
sort of broke through the growth trajectory of a lot. So that's a terrific example of how you set up the right growth team, how you empower them and all that. And the PMs who are serious about growth roles should definitely evaluate the inputs they are getting to control rather than the
Right.
outputs they are getting to manage. And
Right.
that's a problem with people who are impact driven. Like they will see retention and they'll be like, amazing, I'm going to move retention. But move retention by doing what? You don't have enough engineers. You can't even go and pick a fight with search or recommendation or like things that actually create value. You can't go and dictate your terms with content team in this case. So how are you going to move the needle, right? So that's broadly like the answer I have arrived at. And of course it's an evolving answer, so I'm look out for better answers. Yeah. Oh,
Y- y- Yeah, you're right. I mean, I think it is, as you largely said, Deepak, it is also contextual to the segment, the nature of the product that you are building. I would also say the maturity of the process, the model within the organizations. And fortunately or unfortunately, there is like no one answer there. I have also like led multiple product teams in the past, and we have in the best interest of the organizational objectives that we have, and to make sure that the talent pool that we have, we want to make maximize the the talent pool's usage for our KPIs, whether we do it more horizontally, whether they should be
yeah.
entrenched within those respective verticals. And you're right, there is no one way is the right. I think you need to constantly experiment that how are we able to achieve our outcomes while we are trying to make a good progress, right? So that
Yeah.
decision making is not hurt. You are not bleeding with your business as usual when you are trying to grow something. So there are a lot of aspects that needs to be considered. And yes, I think we need to, I would say, look around some of the other references, companies, to say
Yeah.
what works, and probably try to see in our context of our company, how can we, organize this. So
Yeah.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And actually, since we are talking about a lot of these different kind of examples, Deepak, and you have personally been part of growth and success stories of many Indian companies, right? So in that spirit, I would want you to walk through maybe some case studies, some examples of product led growth of products built out of India.
Yes. So I'll share like whatever the knowledge is in the public domain because
Yes, yes, yes,
uh,
absolutely. I think
uh,
crystallizing
so
that itself is a great capsule for the audience.
yes, yes. So some of the companies that I admire, but in India, like I have been active in education tech for a long time, like UpGrad on Academy, PM Curve, and then writing a
Right,
book. So that's one of my favorite
right,
domains. So I'll pick like
right.
if I had to pick one company which has done like very well when it comes to growth is actually Scalar, like product led growth.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And the Scalar, like Scalar started as interview bit back in 2014-15. The founders come from Facebook and like pretty like prestigious background, triple IT Hyderabad, and both are coders. And they built this free platform which people in colleges could use, people preparing for interviews could use to prepare for interviews back in 2014-15 when SD jobs were just picking up. And this was free of cost, right? And this led to a lot of SEO traffic, this led to a lot of word of mouth because you're getting something for free to prepare for your interviews. So it got very popular between 2015 to 18, and the way it monetized over it is basically because it knew the people, how people are doing on its platform. It could refer the good ones to companies like Uber, Facebook, Google, and other companies, right? So it made money on the other side of which is a demand, you can say demand, like which needs good candidates, but for supply, which is
Uh-huh.
the candidates itself, it made a totally free product. So typical like very beautiful marketplace play that they
Okay.
created in
Right.
edtech, right? which is why I admire them. And then this led paved the way to Scalar, which is basically high value courses, live courses for preparing for
Right.
interviews. Because there was a segment which wanted more hand holding, wanted to get deeper into sort of these concepts and actually practice, and got like placement support and all that. So Scalar got built in next like 4 years, and now they are building Scalar School of Technology, which is like more like a college, right? So
Is it offline?
and of course Scalar School of Technology, which
No,
is
no. Are they
a
also going
college.
offline? Is what I was asking.
Yes, they're going offline
Oh, okay.
by building
Oh,
this
okay.
Scalar School of Technology. Yeah, in fact, they have
Oh,
already
okay.
gotten offline. They have gotten like the first batch in Bangalore
Oh,
and all
okay.
that, right?
Oh, okay.
And I'm friends with both founders, and I've met them. Like again, very humble, very very product DNA driven. Uh,
Hmm.
and if you see like product led growth in the beginning led to like Scalar, and then led to this thing, because now they can attract applications from some of the best talent in the country, because people know
Right.
about Scalar and interview bit, which of
Right.
course is a very difficult thing to do if you just create an institute one day, right? So
Correct.
they're moving up market. They're solving problems for different segments, like people who need just interview prep
Right.
material, people who need more hand holding, people who want to do undergraduate studies in computer science from a good college. And yeah, they're going full stack and solving all the problems out there, right? So that's one of my favorite case studies. The other favorite case study is of course the OG of startups, which is Flipkart, and one of my previous company. Now I was not at Flipkart when all of this happened, which has been my favorite bit, which is in its growth stage, right? Like between 2007 to 2014, 15. But think of the ability of Flipkart to take big bets. And when I say big, it could be like, if they fail, they could be existential bets
Hmm.
by listening to customers. Like cash on delivery comes to mind when you think about that, right? It
Right.
launched like cash on delivery back in like 2011, when the credit card penetration in India was just 0.5% or so, right?
Right.
And this like possibly like this led to a lot of, if I had to pick a pivotal moment in e-commerce in India, like it would be this cash on delivery. Because even
Right.
today, like Flipkart has some 50-60% of orders coming from cash on delivery, right? And I'm sure other platforms are as well.
Yes. Yes.
So cash on delivery, no cost EMI, easy returns, all of these are like product innovations which unlock the next lever of growth. If you think about it, it was basically like, if you just focused on internet payments, you could have plateaued very soon. But then you added cash on delivery, and your S curve shifted, and then you added easy returns, and your S curve shifted further. So all of this
Right.
is unlocking the next level of S curves, and led to sort of
Right.
Flipkart on what it is, right? So a lot of innovations in payments, which was a major thing. Trust, which is like easy returns and all. And of course like
Correct.
search recommendations and all, like vernacular and all those things, right? And on the footstep of Flipkart is another competitor which I love to mention, which is Misho, right? And I'm sure like
Uh-huh.
you also have studied Misho closely, because you teach like, and it is a fabulous case study, right? So Misho got
Yes.
its like early growth from its model itself, right? Resellers bringing more people. But
Correct.
I think the magic happened when it moved from B2B to sort of reseller to B2C. And it had
Correct.
like enough traction on its app to sort of make that move. But even then, they haven't stopped there, right? Like, they have gone to sort of, in fact, like I'll say very simple innovation, which could be disruptive, which is very hard to get to, is actually like asking people whether they want to return or not, and then charging differentially. So you go to Misho and you are like asked this question, that you can save 20 rupees if you opt for I will not return it, right?
Hmm.
And
Right.
20 rupees in any most of the part of the world, and even in India where we are sort of operating, seems like such a small number. Like, what is 20 rupees? But Misho has this insight, and I have this insight as well, because I come from a very small village. I was born and brought up there and all that. I still go there because my relatives stay there.
Okay.
I know that 10 or 20 rupees actually matter for that customer.
Right.
And Misho understands that as well, that for Bharat users it actually matters, and that explains their explosive growth, because they are listening to customers, and
Right.
they are sort of building products around those needs to unlock the next level of growth, rather than sort of going after the analogous features like better search, better recommendations,
Correct. Correct.
which is like, yeah. So yeah, I would say like these are a few of my favorite case studies. The last one I would mention is actually Grow. And in paucity of time, like I would just say that if you look at just one aspect of Grow, which people don't mention enough, which is search engine optimization, you would be amazed at
Mm-hmm.
what they have done in 4 or 5 years. Like Zerodha, which is
Mm.
like a 10-year-old company, has the same domain authority, which is like how good a particular website is in terms of SEO ranking, as Grow. And the
Mm.
best thing is Grow has more like downloads, of course, on the App Store, Play Store. Like if you look at the downloads of Grow, those are on north of 50 million. Zerodha is
Okay.
10 million, which is 1 crore, 5 crore. So there is that difference. But even on
Right.
websites, like the organic traffic of Grow is 30% as compared to Zerodha's, which is just 10%. So on Zerodha,
Oh.
even if it is attracting higher number of visits,
Right.
uh, the people who are coming back again and again and already know Zerodha. Grow
Hmm.
is attracting a large chunk of organic traffic, which means that people will be searching for something else around investments, and they're
Correct.
coming to Grow.
And they direct them
And
to
which
here.
means, yeah, now I think I don't need to explain, but you can predict the trajectory, right?
Correct.
So like Grow has done fabulous with its content and everything on search engines, which is where people go for investment advice, right?
Right.
So yeah, it's also one of my favorite teams and favorite case studies.
Yeah. No, I think there are some really, really fantastic examples, and I think if I have to literally look at a theme, is that they made sure that they understand their users, the problem statement really, really well, looked at the insights pretty closely, and made the product so brilliant, especially when they're looking at a particular target segment. And as you
Yeah,
said, once they kind of have extrapolated, they have made a good this things, then they kind of unlock, okay, what is that next set of things? So I think
yeah,
one of the key aspects, I would also say, focusing as much as technology is an important part of it, but a lot of examples which you spoke about, Deepak, it is also about what could be some of the business model innovation that we could bring in, right?
yeah,
Which would help us to scale exponentially. I think those are
yeah,
some very, very, very good examples. And yes, you are right. I mean, at India, we kind of solve for masses, right? And all of these examples that you have taken, they have made sure that they make the product really so well that it is easy to scale for those masses, right?
yes,
And
yeah,
the last one, the Grow example, it is like you don't only need to build a product which is so good, but how do you discover that product is also a
yeah,
very, very important aspect of growth, right? And that's where this
yeah.
whole fusion of your data, marketing, business, product all comes together and plays the magic.
Awesome. That's a great summary, Malti. That's a great summary.
Yeah,
Love it.
so yeah, that's right.
Mm.
Now, since we are kind of talking a lot about growth PM, I think one last question on this context, Deepak, that I would have is and you also take value led growth or product led growth courses, would be that what should be the approach that growth PM need to take to continue to succeed in their growth trajectory, in their own career growth trajectory? What should be the approach? What should be the mindset with which they should go?
Yeah, I think if I had to sort of look at the career progression and then advise accordingly, right? Because
Right. Sure.
depending on where you are, I think the
Correct.
recommendation will change.
Correct.
To start with, like to move from a PM to a growth PM, like I said, the mindset is very important. Like you have to move
Sure.
from a shipping high quality software consistently well to sort of creating actual impact. So that's the first
Impact.
pivotal shift that you need to make. But more than that, you need to make yourself really good at few skills. Like so, one of the key problems in growth is actually like how do you discover the highest leverage areas, like where is customer dropping off to explain it simply, where is customer dropping off? Why are they dropping off? What could be the problems, right? And to do that well, you need to be very good at data, because while we tend to believe that data gives a lot of signals, data also gives a lot of noise. So one of my favorite books is around actually like how to lie with statistics. And the reason I love that book is because there is thousands of books written around how to use data to uncover truth. It talks about how do people use data to lie, and how can data in itself lie to you, because we love that expression, correlation is not causation and all, right? But what does it mean? Where does it manifest in the organizations? So data is definitely the most important skill. Like, it's, I would say, the bottom of the pyramid. The second thing you need to do is you have to stop lying to yourself, and to do that you need to be really good at experimentation, because like I said, correlation is not causation. So when you ship something, rather than saying that, oh, we saw this increase because we shipped this, can you actually establish causation between the two? And which is why, can you do experiment on 50-50 or 80-20, or and say that the control group actually experienced this, didn't experience this, the test group actually experienced this, and now we are sure that this is what caused the spike in orders or whatever we did, right? So data with experimentation, these are essential skills for a growth PM. Now if you move a little bit like senior PM or lead PM roles, what becomes equally important is the domain knowledge and customer knowledge, right? Now domain knowledge is very, very important, because unless you understand domain, you can't understand why somebody is actually preferring your product over others, or why somebody is preferring some other product over yours, right? So domain and customer actually sort of, I would say they are same, there's opposite sides of the same coin, because they actually feed into each other. You can't understand a domain without understanding a customer, and can't understand a customer preference without understanding a domain. And which is why when at a SPM or lead PM role, you actually are given some metrics to move. Unless you can map what will make people exhibit this behavior on my product, because unless you know what they are doing out there in their lives, why are they preferring something else over yours and all that, you can't build a feature that is a competitive advantage. For example, Grow could not have doubled down on SEO if it didn't realize that this is a winning advantage that we can build over time. Or Misho could not have built that feature if it didn't realize that the focus to tier 3, tier 4 audience actually means that we have to care about 10 or 20 rupees that they actually spend, right? That just places it as a value first platform. So it's very important to have the domain. And by the way, Misho also needs to know that Flipkart does not do it, and why it does not do it, and why it can't do it, or Amazon does not do it, why it can't do it, right? So it's very, very important at that level. And then at the leadership level, I think few things become very important, which is like, in terms of soft skills, your persuasion becomes very important, because you need to sell that your team can actually deliver on the impact, or you need to sell why the team didn't deliver on the impact more often than not, right? So persuasion is very, very important, followed by self-awareness, because growth teams, like I said, right, growth is an amalgamation of skills. Like, you need to understand marketing, you need to understand business, you need to understand tech, you need to understand all the like basics of product management. So if you're not aware of where your gaps are, and there will be gaps that you have as a leader, it's very hard for you to not miss a target. And you will be judged on missing a target, right? That's the your sole responsibilities are like two. Actually, there are two responsibilities you have. The first is, can you judge whether a target is a good target or a bad target? A bad target is one which looks very lofty but is not achievable with the means that you are given. A good target is the one which is lofty, but you have mapped on what will it take to sort of deliver it, and you know how you'll deliver it, right?
Correct.
Uh, so you have to differentiate between a good and bad target. That means you need to have the skills to actually sort of map that out, or you should know where your gaps are so that you can ask the right questions to the team, right? So self awareness is very important. So that's basically your first thing. And the second thing is, can you hit the target, and if not, can you persuade people that it's still a good idea to chase this target and all, which is why persuasion is the second skill, right? So I would say, like, these two are the major skill on leadership level, barring like the once we talked about experimentation, data, domain knowledge, customer knowledge. Add to that, I would say a little bit of marketing and sales knowledge also helps, because like we said, you have to talk to these teams and actually interact with them.
Correct. You're right.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a great summary, especially across levels, and I'm sure the audience is going to love that part of it. So,
Mhm. And
Deepak, thank you. I think this was a great conversation, and it kind of showcases the amount of depth you also go in your case studies, discoveries, and stuff when you're talking. So, if anybody wants to reach out to you, what is the best way to do, fastest way to reach to you?
yeah, the fastest is LinkedIn actually. So I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. So
Okay,
fastest is like just send a connect request on LinkedIn, and drop a message, because I get a lot of connects. So if it is a message, I know that I have to accept and I have to respond to it. So best way is actually to send a message on LinkedIn. Uh, I'm also available on Twitter, but I'm not that active. So yeah, LinkedIn is the best way to reach out.
okay. I'm sure this is going to be very, very relevant to a lot of folks who are going to be listening into this episode. But that was a great set of nuances and your own wisdom that you have built over so many years that you have shared out. So thank you, Deepak, for taking the time out and sharing these nuggets of wisdom with us.
No, no, thank you for hosting, Malti. Like I said in the beginning, you're doing amazing job for young PMs out there, and I definitely believe they need a lot of guidance, because there is a lot of noise and there is a lot of, somebody like you who has a lot of experience needs to filter that noise. And I just hope that this podcast thing also sort of picks up massively, because we definitely need some great podcast from India, built from India, so that, not because we want something from India, but because we need PMs to understand the nuances of building products in India. We need PMs to learn about like what it takes to build successful products in India. And
Yeah.
unless there is a podcast out of India that actually does that, and my hope is this one actually does it, right?
Thank you.
I think we'll be at a loss. So thank you for taking this initiative, and I wish you all the best and all the